but I always just remembered it in the form of a nightmare.
And as a kid, showing the child sexual abuse symptoms, being treated as if our say has absolutely no impact on what's going to happen to us, the guilt and shame you carry as a result. This one diagnostic test completely derailed my life.
My childhood was normal. I had an older brother. We went to Disney a lot, and eventually we got a family dog. But my health was, and still is, unique to me. My peers can't relate, which makes me feel incredibly isolated. My name is Isabelle Primavera. I'm a senior at Chapman University, and this is my thesis, Unsilenced.
I came to Children's Mercy to have a special test done called a VCUG.
It's a painless procedure.
The catheter will be advanced through the urethra. Children tell us that it feels weird, stings, or pinches a little.
I peed while I was still laying on the bed with the camera over me. That's what they said I needed to do.
When you get done with that procedure and they look at you and they're like, oh, it's done. That's so fun and rewarding, and you're high-fiving and
experienced severe pain during each of my VCUGs, screaming bloody murder.
Not being done ethically.
They need to be honest.
Not only did this happen to me,
All of our stories are so similar.
It feels like very objectifying, burdensome,
Subhuman,
violent,
guilt,
dramatic,
severely traumatizing.
my body will never forget that day.
Not really.
When I was born, I spiked a fever, which indicates an infection, and mine was in my urinary tract.
You had blood cultures, and you had, unbeknownst to me, your very first VCUG.
A VCUG is a procedure where you are entirely awake, you lie down on a cold medical table, a catheter is inserted into your urethra and attached to your bladder, which is filled with contrast that can be seen via X-ray. While you will have the sensation and the need to go to the bathroom, you must hold it in until nurses ask you to empty your bladder on the table, laying down in front of strangers. If you have reflux, the contrast will flow back up your ureter and into your kidneys as you void. It's an indication that your urine is doing the exact same thing.
After the test was done, they came and they gave us the results. You had vesicular renal reflux.
And that was the first of many VCUGs.
You needed multiple VCUGs to test and monitor the level of vesicular renal reflux you had in order to assess if and when you were going to have surgery to reconstruct the area. And quickly thereafter, did we meet Dr. Gerhardt in the NICU, or was it not until the first appointment?
I don't recall.
Yeah, I don't remember him actually being in the NICU, so I have a feeling he wasn't.
I'm John Gerhardt. I'm the Professor in Chief of Pediatric Urology at the Radiological Institute of the Johns Hopkins Hospital here in Baltimore, Maryland.
At the time we thought, wow, we have this amazing doctor who is going to do their best to take care of Isabelle. He doesn't really ask you or give you options. He says, this is what we're going to do.
He is a complete asshole who doesn't care about his patients and just sees us as people he needs to cure and fix.
I've not had a lot of people praising his bedside manner.
I think we had somewhat of an understanding of what the testing was, but I also think it's one of those things that you can't really envision in your mind until you're present.
I don't remember much about VCUGs, but I clearly remember stating it felt like they were sticking ice cubes down there, because I didn't know the medical equipment was going to be cold. I didn't even know it was medical equipment.
I think it was concerning to watch, but I think we were under the impression that there wasn't a choice here.
There's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do. You can scream and cry, and you're completely at the mercy of the person doing the test, right?
You've given your control over to the physicians and the medical team, and you're trusting that they're making these recommendations on behalf of your child and to their benefit.
When I was 19, I was having recurrent UTIs. So just in case I had another VCUG. It was the most mortifying, embarrassing, and horrifying experience ever.
The procedure did not go as planned. It was not successful.
I remember my only concern before the appointment was if I could void in front of everyone. But I walked out of the pediatric urology wing at Hopkins with many more concerns and issues. I never really thought I was traumatized, but in the summer of 2023, an adult female urologist said some of the symptoms, like the shy bladder or tight and painful pelvic floor, can realistically be attributed to the possible trauma I endured from past medical experiences. Would it surprise you to hear that I have PTSD from the procedure?
No.
Certainly it's not crazy to think that would happen.
No, it's one of those things that I hadn't really thought about. That's going to feel like an invasion of privacy and then potentially like an assault.
It only takes one negative medical encounter to experience medical trauma. And when you think of the nature of a VCUG and how vulnerable of a position a patient is in, it wouldn't surprise me for any pediatric patient to need ongoing mental health support.
That night, I Googled VCUG trauma and saw that it's a very real thing. That's when I found the support group, Unsilenced. On top of reading the studies they highlighted on their website, I joined the WhatsApp group chat and met so many people like me and quickly found comfort in it.
So Unsilenced was initially founded as a support group for survivors of sexual abuse and sexual trauma in the medical setting, specifically VCUG survivors. I just remember feeling like this really intense sense of injustice. It was honestly just a no-brainer to create a space that is publicly available, as it just felt like the right thing to do at the time.
And it's just really nice to see people who have pretty much the exact same experience as me.
I feel like I can breathe, knowing that I'm not crazy. This thing that happened to me was legitimately traumatic.
Some studies have correlated VCUG trauma with sexual trauma. And it's true.
My VCUGs taught me that I have no say over what happens to my body, what other people do to me. I have no control over that.
I never consented to my VCUGs, and it taught me that I could be touched without permission. I thought it was normal. Medical professionals could do whatever they wanted with my body without asking and ignore the emotional and physical pain. In my little kid brain, I thought this applied to everyone. So, I was sexually assaulted multiple times as a child. At the time, I didn't think anything was wrong with this, but I knew something wasn't right since I didn't tell my parents, teachers, or friends. It's always been an embarrassing secret that I don't really want to share. It's something that I could have stopped by saying no, but I never did.
One of the biggest pieces of my story is multiple instances of sexual assault in which I reverted back to my trauma response of freezing, and that just permitted men to kind of do as they wanted with my body. So I was never made to believe that that was my choice, my decision.
I was in a abusive relationship for about 4 years, and I know it started with VCUG. I was screaming and still nobody even looked at me. It was why is this kid throwing a tantrum? So I just learned it's my fault. Sit down, shut up. Nothing I can do matters.
It's a gut punch to learn that your child was sexually assaulted.
You feel sick to your stomach in regards to it happening. Again, another example of not being able to protect you, especially because it's not like we weren't there in the same house.
What's left is just an overwhelming sense of guilt and failure to protect you, knowing that decisions we made caused such harm. It's devastating as a parent.
In some cases, I understand why VCUGs are medically necessary. I had grade 5 VUR. I could have died from a kidney infection or needed a transplant before I was 1 year old. However, I don't understand why it must be done awake when various studies have proved that VCUGs are a big source of trauma.
The Goodman study came out in what we just covered at 1990. That's 34 years we're going on of having known the ramifications of this procedure, and there's still been nothing done, and there's still a really, really low level of compassion.
I had to wait for my 6th VCUG to be sedated, just because my urologist didn't want me to have bladder spasms, not because my experience was extremely traumatic.
Well, we don't actually have a sedation team at Hopkins, but I do think that sedation would be an amazing resource to be able to offer.
I mean, some of the procedures can't be avoided, but it would be nice if kids went into it at least knowing at their level what was going to happen.
So it can be done, right? Like you can include developmentally appropriate ways to include the child and make the child feel like they have autonomy and they're in the driver's seat.
VCUG trauma runs deep in many patients, but medical professionals are blissfully unaware of it.
I remember the nurses and the doctor being like so annoyed with me because I was just so anxious and so stressed and didn't want that done.
I think that took a long time for people to become aware that this procedure was very traumatic to kids and families.
My old pediatric urologist, Dr. John Gerhardt, didn't consent to being recorded. However, part of my healing journey was to confront him, and I had a conversation with him off camera. He didn't think that VCUGs were traumatic because it's just a catheterization. He didn't take responsibility and had an excuse for everything.
It's one thing to go through something so severely traumatizing and life-altering, but it's a completely other thing to like have that happen to you, and then your whole life everyone's invalidating you and telling you that you're just being sensitive.
If you didn't know, but now you know, and you have to ethically do something different.
Well, we've only had very few award recipients.
Like it's impacted every facet of my life.
And they're identified as individuals who exemplify the highest value of leadership, clinical care and research, and I am so honored and pleased to announce
you might get kidney disease if you don't get this test.
That we are giving Dr. John P. Gerhardt.
But what if you do get this test?
A humanitarian award.
And then you end up committing suicide later in life. Or you end up getting cervical cancer because you can't go to a gynecology appointment.
30 years is way too long. The people in here that are under the age of 30 should not have had the experiences that we have had. But we did. So now that you're hearing this, you have to do something. And if not, then, I don't know, God have mercy on your soul. Best of luck.